January 7th, 2026. A company with direct ties to the president files paperwork to become a bank.
January 10th, the chairman of the Federal Reserve gets served with a criminal grand jury subpoena.
72 hours, that's it. And tonight we're asking the question nobody in Washington wants to answer. Are we watching the privatization of the American dollar happen in real time?
I'm Liam.
I'm Sophia. And look, I need to say this up front, this isn't some conspiracy theory show. We're not spinning wild tales here.
Every date we mention tonight is verifiable. Every document is public record. Every quote is on the official record.
We're walking through a timeline that sounds completely insane, but exists in black and white in government filings you can pull yourself.
So let's start with the facts. Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. World Liberty Financial, and we need to be direct here. This company has documented ties to the First Family, files an application with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency.
The OCC. They're the gatekeepers for national banks in America.
If you want to operate as a bank across all 50 states without dealing with 50 different state regulators, you need their blessing. World Liberty Financial wants a national trust bank charter specifically to issue their stablecoin called USD1.
And this isn't hidden. You can literally go to the OCC website right now and pull this filing yourself.
Now, fast forward exactly 72 hours. Saturday morning, January 10th, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, arguably the most powerful banker in the entire world, receives a grand jury subpoena from the Department of Justice.
Not a friendly request, not a, hey, can we chat? A grand jury subpoena. That's what you use when you're investigating potential crimes.
Powell issued a public statement on January 11th. It's on the Federal Reserve's official website. He used the exact phrase, political retaliation.
And the reason they're investigating him? Take a guess.
A building renovation. The Federal Reserve's headquarters, the Eccles Building in Washington, D.C., underwent a $2.5 billion renovation project. The DOJ says they have questions about Powell's congressional testimony regarding that project.
Are you serious? They're going after the Fed chair over construction costs?
That's the stated reason, yes.
Liam, government buildings go over budget every single day in this country, but 3 days after this charter application? Come on.
That's the exact question. Could this be coincidence? Absolutely. Governments are massive, complicated organizations. The DOJ does one thing, the OCC does another. Timing can overlap.
But there's a law that makes this timing really, really interesting.
July 2025, Congress passes the GENIUS Act with bipartisan support, the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins.
I remember those press conferences. Beat China, innovation, keep America competitive, all the buzzwords.
Those might be legitimate goals, but if you actually read the legislation, and most people don't because it's incredibly dense, there's something in Section 5 that fundamentally changes how these applications work.
Okay, break it down.
Section 5 creates a 120-day clock. When the OCC receives an application for certain types of digital bank charters, they have exactly 120 days to issue a formal rejection.
And not just, we don't like you, right?
Correct. It has to be a complete legal case, documented evidence of specific risks, formal findings, everything has to be airtight.
So what happens if they miss that deadline?
Automatic approval.
Wait, what?
If they cannot build a complete legally defensible case for rejection within 120 days, the application is deemed automatically approved.
That's insane. So in normal banking, you apply and wait as long as it takes while you prove you're safe. But this flips it completely?
Exactly. Under the GENIUS Act, the burden shifts to the government. They have to prove you're dangerous, and they have to do it fast.
And that 120-day clock started when? January 7th, when World Liberty Financial filed their application.
Which means it expires May 7th, 2026. That's 98 days from today.
And 3 days after that clock starts ticking, the person whose agency would normally be scrutinizing a systemically important bank charter gets hit with a criminal investigation.
Over office renovations.
This is starting to look less like coincidence and more like strategy.
Now, to be fair, if there was genuine corruption or mismanagement in how $2.5 billion was spent on that renovation, the DOJ should investigate it.
Sure, but the timing creates what experts call administrative shock, right? You paralyze the very people who should be watching this application.
And look at what happened in the week that followed. January 13th, just 6 days after the original application, Senator Elizabeth Warren sent an urgent letter to the OCC demanding they delay the review process.
What did she say in that letter?
She specifically cited conflicts of interest, the president's financial stake in World Liberty Financial, and concerns about the integrity of the review process. The letter is public record.
And did the OCC delay?
No. Comptroller Jonathan Gould, and this is important, he serves at the pleasure of the president, formally declined to delay on January 22nd. He said the review would proceed on its normal timeline.
Of course he did.
Also, on January 14th, Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, announced that he would block the confirmation of every Federal Reserve nominee until the Powell investigation is resolved. That statement is on his official Senate website.
So within 1 week, you've got the Fed chair facing criminal charges, a Democratic senator screaming to halt the process, a Republican senator blocking all Fed appointments, and total chaos in the regulatory system.
And that 120-day clock just keeps ticking. May 7th doesn't care about political chaos.
That's the weapon, not a gun, a calendar.
Which brings us to the critical question: why?
Right. Why would anyone go through all this trouble for a bank charter?
Because the business model here is, without any exaggeration, one of the most profitable schemes in modern financial history.
Okay, you need to explain this to me like I'm 5.
Let's say you're a regular person who wants to buy some cryptocurrency. You go to World Liberty Financial's platform and purchase $100 of their stablecoin, USD1.
So I give them 100 real US dollars and they give me 100 digital tokens on my phone, one-to-one exchange.
Correct. Those tokens sit in your digital wallet. Maybe you use them to buy other crypto, maybe you just hold them. The key point is that those tokens don't earn you any interest. They just sit there worth $1 each.
Okay, so what happens to my actual $100 in cash that I gave them?
They don't put it in a vault. They invest it. Specifically, they invest it in U.S. Treasury bills.
T-bills, government debt, the safest investment on earth.
Exactly. Currently yielding about 5% annually. So your $100 in cash is sitting in T-bills, generating about $5 per year in completely risk-free interest.
And I get that $5 since it's my money backing the system?
No.
What do you mean, no?
World Liberty Financial keeps 100% of the yield. You get zero.
Wait, hold on. I'm holding their token. My cash is backing the entire system, but I don't get any of the interest that my money is generating?
Correct. Your tokens remain worth $1 each. They don't pay interest. World Liberty Financial keeps all the yield.
That's completely insane. Okay, but on $100, that's only $5. Why does this matter?
Because we need to scale this. Industry analysts, and I'm talking about serious financial institutions here, not crypto enthusiasts, project that USD1, if it gets this national bank charter and gains access to the Federal Reserve's payment infrastructure, could reach $500 billion in circulation within just a few years.
$500 billion.
Let me walk you through the math. $500 billion times a 5% annual yield equals $25 billion in pure annual profit.
Okay, I need to put this in perspective because that number is so big it doesn't even sound real. Apple, the iPhone company, one of the most valuable corporations on Earth, made $112 billion in net profit last year.
Think about what Apple has to do to earn that profit. They design cutting-edge processors. They build complex supply chains across multiple continents. They manufacture hundreds of millions of devices every year.
They employ 166,000 people. They run thousands of retail stores worldwide. They invest billions in research and development. Every product launch is a massive risk.
World Liberty Financial would be earning over 22% of Apple's entire annual profit simply by holding treasury bills and collecting a quarterly check from the U.S. government.
0 retail stores, 0 manufacturing, 0 engineers designing anything. They're literally just holding government debt and keeping all the interest.
And, by the way, as of January 28th, just 2 days ago, USD1 has already reached $4.9 billion in market capitalization, according to CoinGecko.
Wait, it's already that big?
It's already the 5th largest stablecoin in the world. It's surpassed PayPal stablecoin, which has been around longer, and has the full backing of one of the most established payment companies in history.
So they're already at $4.9 billion. At 5% yield, that means they're already collecting about $245 million a year in pure profit?
Correct. And this is without the charter. This is without direct access to the Federal Reserve's payment systems. Once they get federal banking status, that's when the exponential scaling begins.
Okay, so we've established the profit motive, $25 billion reasons to want this charter, but somebody has to be losing in this equation. Money doesn't just appear out of nowhere.
3 groups lose. First, traditional banks.
How?
Because if consumers and businesses start holding USD1 tokens instead of keeping money in regular bank accounts, banks lose deposits, and deposits are the absolute bloodline of the banking system.
Because banks need deposits to make loans, right?
Exactly. Without deposits, banks cannot lend money for mortgages, small business loans, car loans, student loans. Either the real economy slows dramatically or interest rates for those types of loans increase significantly because banks are desperately competing for whatever deposits remain.
Okay, who's the second group that loses?
Taxpayers. That 5% interest that World Liberty Financial is collecting, it's paid by the U.S. Treasury, which means it's coming from our tax dollars.
Oh my God, so we're literally paying them to hold our own money?
Yes.
That's outrageous.
And the third group is also taxpayers, but in a different way. When this system inevitably becomes too big to fail, and $500 billion is absolutely too big to fail, who provides the bailout?
We do. The taxpayers.
If USD1 reaches $500 billion in circulation and something goes catastrophically wrong, a bank run, a technical failure, fraud, anything, the government cannot allow it to collapse. Too many individuals and businesses would be wiped out. Confidence in digital dollars would crater.
So we've got privatized gains, $25 billion a year flowing to private shareholders, and socialized losses, where taxpayers hold the insurance policy if anything goes wrong.
We've seen this exact movie before, 2008, Too Big to Fail, except at least traditional banks perform genuine economic functions. They evaluate creditworthiness, they allocate capital to productive uses in the economy.
This is just pure extraction. It's literally a toll booth on the dollar itself.
Now there's another dimension to this that goes beyond just profit. We need to talk about control, specifically what it means when money becomes programmable.
Okay, this is the part that genuinely scares me.
Cash in your physical wallet is what we call dumb money. A $20 bill has no idea where you are, what you're purchasing, who you voted for, what you post on social media. It's just paper.
But a digital token is different.
Completely different. A digital token is code, it's software, and the Genius Act specifically requires what it calls real-time compliance hooks to be built into these stablecoin systems.
And the official reason for that is stopping bad guys, right? Money laundering, terrorism financing?
Those are the stated justifications, yes, and those are legitimate concerns. No one wants to make it easy for terrorists or drug cartels to move money around the financial system.
But here's the problem. The exact same infrastructure that can freeze a terrorist's digital wallet can also freeze a journalist's wallet, or a political activist's, or a protest organizer's, or literally anyone the issuer decides to restrict.
And we're not speculating about some distant dystopian future here. This technology exists right now and is actively being used in other countries. China's digital yuan, for example, has the technical capability to program tokens to expire if they're not spent within certain time frames.
So they can force you to spend.
Yes. They can also impose geographic restrictions. You can only spend this money within certain regions. And they can freeze funds without any judicial oversight whatsoever.
So if your money can be turned off because you attended a protest that later turned violent, even if you personally were completely peaceful, or if it gets frozen because you donated to a political candidate that someone in power doesn't like, or if your purchasing power gets restricted because you posted something on social media that got flagged as misinformation, whether that flag was correct or not, then you don't actually own your money.
You're essentially renting purchasing power that can be revoked at any moment.
And here's the constitutional nightmare, right? When the government directly freezes your assets, you have due process rights. Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment, no deprivation of property without due process of law.
But when a private company does the freezing, the legal landscape becomes extraordinarily murky.
Especially when that private company is run by the president's family. Is that state action subject to constitutional limits, or is it private action that can do whatever its terms of service say?
Courts would likely fight over that question for years, possibly decades. But meanwhile, the system is already operational. People are already using these tokens. The infrastructure is already built and functioning.
And once these tools exist, the temptation to use them becomes impossible to resist, right? History teaches us this lesson over and over.
So surveillance capabilities that are created for one stated purpose inevitably end up being used for completely different purposes. Possibility becomes probability. Probability becomes certainty.
Okay, so let's talk about what's happened in just the last 48 hours, because this story is moving incredibly fast.
Yesterday, January 28th, Jerome Powell held his regular post-FOMC press conference after the Federal Reserve's monetary policy meeting. The Fed decided to hold interest rates steady, which was widely expected.
But the real news came during the Q&A portion, right?
Powell was asked multiple times about the DOJ investigation and whether he plans to remain at the Fed as a governor after his term as chair ends in May 2026.
What did he say?
His exact words were, "I have nothing for you." He declined to comment on both questions.
Sounds like someone under serious legal pressure.
Also, yesterday, we learned from CNBC, citing a source familiar with the situation, that the Federal Reserve still has not complied with those grand jury subpoenas that was served back on January 10th.
So the standoff is ongoing.
The DOJ is demanding documents related to the building renovation. Powell's legal team is resisting. The legal fight continues.
And as long as that fight drags on, as long as the Fed chair is consumed with defending himself against potential criminal charges, the OCC's review of World Liberty Financial's charter application just keeps moving forward.
The OCC formally rejected Senator Warren's request to delay, by the way. That response came on January 22nd. Comptroller Jonathan Gould stated that the review would proceed on its normal timeline.
Which brings us back to that deadline, May 7th, 2026. That's when the 120-day automatic approval clock runs out.
And here's where the timing becomes almost too perfect to ignore. Powell's term as Fed chair also ends in May 2026.
So we could potentially hit that May deadline with no Fed chair in place, the entire regulatory system in absolute chaos, and a charter that gets automatically approved simply by default?
Senator Tillis is still blocking all Federal Reserve nominees. He's stated explicitly that he will not allow any confirmations to proceed until the Powell investigation is fully resolved. So if Powell's term expires and no successor can be confirmed because of that blockade, what happens?
You've got a Federal Reserve without permanent leadership, an OCC that's proceeding with its review despite loud protests from Congress, and a calendar that doesn't care about any of this political drama.
Also breaking this morning, literally just published today, Politico ran a story about World Liberty Financial rapidly expanding globally. They're striking deals in multiple countries, positioning USD1 as an international payment system.
They're moving fast. That's what you do when you know you have a limited window of opportunity.
So that's where we stand right now. 98 days until the May 7th deadline. A Fed chair under active criminal investigation. A charter application moving steadily forward despite significant opposition. The question is, what can regular people actually do about any of this?
Okay, real talk. Can citizens actually influence this process, or are we just observers watching it happen?
The OCC is legally required to accept public comments on significant charter applications. You can file comments through regulations.gov. If you're concerned about conflicts of interest, about the economic model we've described, about the civil liberties implications, there are legitimate official channels.
And I'm assuming people should also be contacting their elected representatives.
Absolutely. Your senators, your representatives, and here's the important thing. This genuinely isn't a partisan left-right issue. There are Republicans who are furious about the Powell investigation, and there are Democrats who are furious about the charter application itself. This is fundamentally about institutional integrity.
What about at the policy level? Is there any legislation being discussed to address these issues?
There's been discussion of what some advocates are calling a Digital Dollar Fairness Act. The core principle is straightforward. If a stablecoin earns interest on its backing assets, that interest should be shared with the actual people holding the tokens.
That seems like an incredibly reasonable baseline. If it's my money generating the yield, why shouldn't I receive that yield, instead of it going entirely to the issuer?
The larger strategic question revolves around Federal Reserve leadership. Who replaces Jerome Powell, whether in May when his term officially ends or potentially earlier if this investigation somehow forces him out, will be absolutely crucial. That person's views on private stablecoins accessing Fed payment systems could determine whether this becomes a systemic issue or remains relatively contained.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to be really clear about what we are and are not saying tonight.
Agreed. We are not claiming there is definitive proof of a coordinated conspiracy. We are not saying the application should be automatically rejected without proper review. We are not arguing that all digital currencies are inherently problematic.
What we are saying is this. The timeline is suspicious enough to warrant intense public scrutiny. The business model concentrates extraordinary wealth in private hands while systematically offloading risk onto the general public. And the technology being proposed could fundamentally alter the relationship between citizens and their money.
In a functioning democracy, these kinds of decisions should not happen in obscure regulatory proceedings while the public is distracted by other political scandals. They deserve transparent public debate and genuine accountability.
The good news is, and this is actually important, is that the story isn't over yet. May 7th is still 98 days away. Regulators can still conduct thorough reviews. Congress can still hold public hearings. Courts can still weigh in on the constitutional questions.
But time is genuinely running out, and in Washington, silence typically means the status quo wins by default.
We've posted every single source we mentioned tonight on our website: the OCC filing, Powell's official statement, Senator Warren's letter, Senator Tillis's announcement, the complete text of the Genius Act. Everything is linked and independently verifiable.
Don't simply take our word for any of this. Check the actual documents yourself. Look up the specific dates. Read the legislation with your own eyes. Draw your own informed conclusions.
Because if we're right about what's happening here, we're watching the fundamental operating system of the dollar being rewritten in real time.
And if we're wrong, at least we asked the difficult questions while there was still time to get answers.
I'm Sophia.
I'm Liam.
This has been The Dollar Debate, a Daily Signal deep dive. All our sources are linked in the show notes. Verify everything yourself.
We'll be following this story closely and updating you as it develops. Democracy works best when people are actually paying attention.
Until next time, stay informed and stay curious.
Thanks for listening.